Why we know that Bush administration did not orchestrate 9/11? Because it worked. That's right. Great Bill Maher joke. And then I shift into talking about politics and economics. Okay, so here's the problem: is that people that are religious tend to believe that their religious beliefs are really actually right, and so do people in political parties. We're very tribal this way. And the reason is I think there's an evolutionary reason that you want to send a signal to your fellow group members that you're a reliable, moral, good person. Remember I mentioned that earlier. And so if you start, sort of veering too far away from what the group believes collectively, I don't know if we can really trust you. Maybe you're going to go over to that other group, right? So there's a little bit of wiggle room for ideological differences within a group, a political party, say. If you veer too far off, then you get criticized. There's sort of a moral punishment. So remember when John Kerry was accused of being a flip-flopper, right? And notice what happened to Romney when it was suspected that he wasn't a true conservative. He said, "I am severely conservative." Ooh, severely? God, the word severe, that's usually used with like cancer, heart attack, crashes and accidents, severe. Well, but he has to do that, right? Because, the group wants to circle the wagons. Are you the purest of the pure kind, right? So, I mean, we have these tropes, and we're so predictable about this. I'll read you my little section in here in which I can predict everything you believe politically. I don't even know you, and I know what you believe. If you're a liberal, I predict that you read the New York Times, you listen to progressive talk radio, you watch CNN, you hate George W. Bush and loathe Sarah Palin, you adore Al Gore and revere Barack Obama, you're pro-choice, anti-gun, adhere to the separation of church and state, are in favor of universal health care, vote for measures to redistribute the wealth and tax the rich in order to level the playing field, and believe that global warming is real, human-caused, and potentially disastrous for civilization if the government doesn't do something dramatic and soon. If you're a conservative, I predict that you read the Wall Street Journal, listen to conservative talk radio, watch Fox News, love George W. Bush and venerate Sarah Palin, despise Al Gore and abhor Barack Obama, he's a socialist, are pro-life, anti-gun control, believe that America is a Christian nation that should meld church and state, are against universal health care, vote against measures to redistribute wealth and tax the rich, and are skeptical of global warming and or government schemes to dramatically alter our economy in order to save civilization. I know the details differ a little bit, but for the most part, those are true, right? And you know the tropes of what liberals think of conservatives. Conservatives are a bunch of Hummer-driving, meat-eating, gun-toting, small government-promoting, tax-decreasing, hard-drinking, Bible-thumping, black-and-white thinking, fist-pounding, shoe-stomping, morally dogmatic blowhards. Right? Isn't that what you think of conservatives? Well, here's what they think of you. Liberals are a bunch of hybrid-driving, tofu-eating, tree-hugging, whale-saving, sandal-wearing, big government-promoting, tax-increasing, bottled water-drinking, flip-flopping, wishy-washy, namby-pamby bedwetters. Really, they do think that. Why are we so predictable? Because in big ideological, economic, political, and even religious groups like this, you have to be loyal to your group. And the sense that somebody veers too far away from that, then we employ moralistic punishment about that. So the other team is not just wrong, they're righteously wrong. They're dangerously wrong. They're bad, evil people. You hear this, just listen to conservative talk radio, for example. I mean, it's really vicious. I mean, they talk about Obama. He's a communist. He's a socialist. These are ignorant people that have no idea what it's like to actually be in a communist country. I mean, and Clinton was called the same thing. I mean, Clinton has to be the most pro-free market Democrat in history, and he was called a socialist, right? So, any way to demonize the other, right? That's how politics works. So. I like the approach that Jonathan Haidt uses about pulling back and looking at the larger perspective, that actually, from an evolutionary perspective, having a sense of loyalty and respect for law and order, this is actually a good thing. Without that, societies have much higher rates of crime and homicide and so on. We know this, that you have to have a certain amount of cohesiveness in a society. Or else it's just self-help justice, and you end up with gangs. And I mean, one of the reasons American crime rate is so much higher than it is in Europe is not because we're somehow genetically different or historically different. Almost all of our excessive crime is from drug-related gang homicides in inner cities. And it's not the money, it's not poverty is not the problem. It's that drugs are illegal. And so the corporations that traffic in drug distribution, we call them corporations, like mafioso corporations, but that's how they see themselves. They have accounting systems, they have a distribution of the profits, sort of a profit sharing amongst the members. They have an informal economy that they've set up. But the problem is if you come in on my turf, it's like, hey buddy, I have a monopoly on this turf here. And you're like, well, I'm moving in. Who am I going to call? The police? Hey, this guy's moving in on my no, I can't, right? So I have to take justice into my own hands. Okay, so this is what happens when law and order breaks down. So when conservatives talk about we really need respect for authority and tradition and family and values, this is what they're worried about. And that's a legitimate worry, because in prehistoric times, or even before, say, the 19th century, that's what the world was like. It was very, very dangerous, and crime rates were 2 or 3 orders of magnitude higher than they are now. Read Steve Pinker's new book, The Better Angels of Our Nature. He sort of tracks the data on all that. And so liberals emphasize different moral values. Fairness and equality and fair justice for everybody, the law treat people equally and so on. Those are also good moral values. So what I like about Jonathan Haidt's research and all that, he's not the only one, but is pulling back and why is somebody Republican? Why would somebody be a conservative? We can't just say they're idiots, although it's tempting to say that, because they disagree with us, because half of Americans vote conservative. So I mean, they can't all be dumb. There's something else going on, right? They just have different moral values that they emphasize than liberals do. And it's not that the liberals are wishy-washy, mamby-pamby bedwetters. It's that they have other moral values that they... So it could be that we naturally evolved the tendency to have sort of 2 competing parties. Now in Europe they have more parties, but roughly speaking, political scientists say that they cluster mostly to the left and mostly to the right. Even multiple parties do, such that people align themselves on something like a spectrum. I've always liked the libertarian perspective because it takes you off the left-right spectrum, which seems kind of linear, because we're fiscally conservative, socially liberal, so we're kind of off the chart. But really, it's just sort of dividing up the spectrum and jumping back and forth. The spectrum still works fairly well at predicting people's behaviors, political beliefs, as I showed you by reading my little trope there. And so it could be that we'll always, again, like the poor and so on, we'll always have this sort of tension. Simply because if there was only one party, then you have the other problem that bubbles up, and that's the corruption. And so there has to be some checks and balances, or else the system breaks down. And having at least 2 parties then is a way of, and the more, I guess maybe the more vicious and competitive they are, the better. Because that way we end up there rather than out here or out here. No one's ever going to vote for somebody who's out here. It's just never going to happen. I mean, sorry, they may vote for them. The Ralph Naders or the Ron Paul, they'll never get elected if they're out here. The entire American political spectrum is between the 2 45-yard lines. They're not that different. And if they were, this could cause problems, and this is why the competitiveness keeps it in check. So I think that's one way to think of politics and economics all wrapped into that. Anyway, then I'll just wrap up by reading my last paragraphs, and we'll take questions. Because the last part of the book I deal with some history of science and how scientific disputes are resolved. You can actually get to the answers to these with good science. So in the end, all of us are trying to make sense of the world, and nature has gifted us with a double-edged sword that cuts for and against. On one edge, our brains are the most complex and sophisticated information processing machines in the universe, capable of understanding not only the universe itself, but also the process of understanding. On the other edge, by the very same process of forming beliefs about the universe and ourselves, we are also the more capable than any other species of self-deception and illusion, of fooling ourselves even while we are trying to avoid being fooled by nature. In the end, I want to believe, but I also want to know. The truth is out there, and although it may be difficult to find, science is the best tool we have for uncovering it. Thank you. Thank you. Well, we'll do questions. Sure. I like the Q&A is the most interesting part for me because I've already heard what I had to say. I'm pretty bored with myself at the moment, so please enlighten me.
All right. We'll make this easy for everybody to get to, so you can come from either aisle, and just make sure you get heard by everybody.
Or the room is small enough. If you wanted to shout it, I could just repeat it, unless this is for a recording or whatever. But yep, go ahead. You all agree with me completely? 100%. No conservatives in the room? Yeah, go ahead.
My question is, I'm an atheist, and I'm not aggressive about what I think, but I speak out about it. And the reaction that I tend to get is hostility. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts about how to overcome that with other people.
Right. Well, so the question is, when you speak out about your atheism, say, or your skepticism, and people respond hostilely. I don't have as much experience with this because I live in LA. You know, most of my friends are atheists, the other half are gays. I mean, there's just no big deal, any of this. But I realize I'm in Alabama, so.
You're in LA,
lower LA, yeah. Lower Alabama, right. Well, okay, so, well, one thing you can do is first of all, be respectful, but honest. Just say, you know, I understand that why you believe that, and you know, but I just ask you to respect the fact that I don't, and I have good reasons why I don't. And you know, the world is big enough that we can disagree and agree to disagree, and enjoy each other's conversation. So let's go have a beer, and I'll try to talk you out of those silly beliefs. I mean, if you use humor, I think that's good. I mean, Penn is real good at this, you know, because he's a professional comedian, and he can get away with saying a lot of stuff that I can't because he's funny. So not everybody's a professional comedian, but I guess being respectful and light about it, and not turn it into a war. Or another tactic I use, because it's true, is I'll often say, yeah, you know, I mean, I completely understand why you believe that. I used to believe that. I did. I completely believe. I'm right there with you. I totally get it. You know, and then you know, I just started thinking about some stuff like, you know, I mean, like, what are the chances that I got it right and a billion other people that believe different things are wrong? I mean, I can certainly understand why you would think that, because that's what I used to think too. But then I just started thinking about it a little bit. You know, maybe I'm not right. And so you just sort of plant a seed. They're not going to go, oh my God, you're right, I'm wrong. That's not going to happen. But you just plant that seed, and maybe they start thinking, maybe I'll think about that. That's really the most you can do.